Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. I promised I wouldn't abandon you in the international break. Although I must admit it's tempting because the international break sucks. But no, I'm here with a Spurs Q&A. 461 comments on the last video. Hopefully not all of those are questions because we're never going to get through that many questions. But I'm going to try and get through as many of them that you left. Lots of really good ones. I had a very quick skim read. If anyone that's seen these Q&As before knows what I do, I might see a few of them come in, but essentially I'm probably looking at most of them for the first time, which is good in one way because you'll get off-the-cuff answers. In another way, I might be completely unprepared for some of the questions that come. Just another little kind of thing to add. My dog, Indy, short for Indiana, is sitting next to me today because I was out earlier today. Left him for a couple of hours and I felt quite guilty when I came back. So I do have the bit of Indy lottery, of Indy roulette, I guess is probably the best way to say it, of where he could suddenly want to get involved in the video. He's kind of having a bit of a nap right now. Or the doorbell could go, or someone could walk by and we may suddenly get his very loud opinion on that. So I'm going to take the risk. It could be an absolute disaster, which might make quite an amusing video for you for about a second until his barking gets annoying. But yeah, couldn't leave him downstairs stuck in the kitchen. So yeah, a little bit of housekeeping in terms of Tottenham before we crack on with the questions. International break has pretty much been going okay so far in terms of any problems. Christian Romero is back at Hotspur Way today. I think he's going to hopefully do a bit of training as well. Obviously, he wasn't able to get his suspension overturned, or Argentina were not. So he went all of the way over to Argentina for absolutely nothing. But hey, it's an international break for Christian Romero. He hasn't returned injured, suspended, quarantining. So it's a win. Who else? Ben Davies has come back from Wales duty, but that's really just a precaution. He's got a bit of a tight quad muscle. So it was kind of agreed between Spurs and Robert Page that it's Rob Page, isn't it? Yeah, is that a musician as well? I'm probably getting that mixed up. But yeah, anyway, back to Ben Davies. Agreed for him to come back just to kind of essentially give him a bit of a rest. Should be fine for the Newcastle game. So that's good. And Page also said actually that Antonio Conte watched Joe Rodon play and was very impressed with him. So that's good as well. So yeah, Harry Kane scoring. Sonny scoring a goal from distance as well for Korea. I think he makes his 100th appearance for them today. Steven Bergwijn scored a couple of goals. Kulusevski took a bit of a whack to the face, but I think he's okay. Obviously, we got to see Christian Eriksen also coming back and scoring a goal, which was lovely as well. So at this moment in time, fingers crossed, as I massively jinx it all, as I record this, everything was okay. It's not my fault if it's not after this. So yeah, right, let's crack straight into the questions. I've got to kind of sift through them. Some are kind of buried within comments. So apologies if you hear me doing the old and but you'll be absolutely used to that if you watch my videos anyway. So first one up, which is one I get asked so many times, which is fine because there are clearly lots of people that haven't heard my answer on this. Can you answer? This is Staerk, Staerc, asks, can you answer the question that is on the mind of every Spurs fan? Who is the absolute unit Brad Friedel look like, who's always giving the lads a pat on the back before they come on? You'll be talking about Alan Dixon, who is technically, or certainly was, a player liaison officer. Big chap, very friendly with all of the players, looks after them. I think his role now is more than that. I think we've seen that. He's quite often actually now, is holding up the subs board, especially at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And yeah, it's a much more all-encompassing role. I had to interview him way back when he was a player liaison with Roberto Belmonte, who's the other player liaison officer. You might have seen him in the Amazon documentary. He was the one with Tongion Dembele doing his meeting, helping him in his meeting with Daniel Levy. Sorry, and he's just done a big sigh. He clearly is already bored. So if you get weird kind of sighing noises, it's not me, it's him. If I could, I'd turn the camera around because you could see him. He's a little sandy-coloured cockapoo. He's a good boy. He is. So yeah, Alan Dixon is essentially a player liaison officer. I don't know what his current title is, but I'd imagine it's something grander because I think he's a a bit of everything. Does a lot of stuff for the team and the players. So yeah, Alan Dixon. Tiger Tony asks, "Hi Alistair, at the next press conference with Mr. Conte, can you ask him why Harry Kane keeps taking the free kicks just outside the penalty area?" Yeah, I get that one quite a lot as well. It's one of those questions. It's a bit like, what's he gonna say to it? Because I suppose if Harry Kane is probably Spurs' best player, isn't he? If he wants to take the free kicks, he's probably going to take them. Yes, we don't expect him to score. Yes, I think he's hit the woodwork a couple of times. Man City, Arsenal, I remember a few of them. I don't know, Spurs. I mean, Eric Dyer takes a good free kick. I've seen Lucas score. I mean, he did against Marine. I don't know if that counts, although a free kick. It's technically the art of the free kick rather than the opposition, isn't it? I haven't seen Sonny take too many, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those. I think if it was becoming a real issue in that it was really hampering Spurs in games, then perhaps it would be something. But there's probably slightly more pressing things to ask him right now. But it is certainly something that we all notice. Don't worry, we are kind of very aware of it. Right, next question is here. There was one about. There we go. Why? This is Connor Baker asks, why do you think the club feels not loaning Scarlet is better for his development next season? We don't know entirely about next season yet. That's still to be determined. I think the key thing with Dane Scarlett is he's so young. He's very, very young. He's only literally turned 18 a couple of days ago. You don't normally loan out 17-year-olds, so I don't really think that was ever going to be an option this season. I think it's quite important that they get, development time alongside players like Harry Kane, like Sonny. These are big kind of players, and last season he would have learned from Gareth Bale being there as well. So I don't think you can really overestimate how important that is to be watching and being mentored in a way by these top players. And you can see Conte raving about him the other day, Dane Scarlett. He knows kind of how much of a bright future, he said a brilliant future he's got. I think, personally, what I would do next season, I'd give him the first half of the season at Tottenham. I'm pretty sure Spurs will sign another striker, but let him, the other striker, and Kane kind of get bits of game time. Obviously, Kane's going to get the majority of the game time, but for Dane to get a little bit of minutes here and there in European competition, which hopefully Spurs will have. And then maybe it comes to January and then you decide, okay, is now the time to let him have half a season, playing every week somewhere, maybe it was League One, League Two, whatever it is, possibly Championship, but you want to go somewhere where he's going to play minutes all the time. And then that's when you kick him on a little bit. So we'll see. He is very talented. I do apologise. Connor's put about 3 or 4 questions in there, but I've got so many that I'm going to try and be fair and just do at least, one per person. Right, that was random. I did, by the way, if you don't remember, I did ask for any questions. Doesn't have to be about Spurs, just to kind of mix it up, which is why mindlesswhales come straight in there with, my question is, are you a Dua Lipa fan? I liked one of her early ones, kind of the one that I think she kind of burst onto the scene with. I don't really know too many. She did one with Elton John, didn't she? I wouldn't say I am an avid follower of her work. I'm not saying that I don't like her songs when I hear it, but I'll be honest, I kind of listen to podcasts more. Various kind of, I was talking Sopranos podcast was something I worked my way through, and now I'm on the Entourage one, Victory podcast. I'm more a podcast kind of guy. Occasionally football ones, but I'll be honest, because my working life is so football based, I probably don't listen to too many football-y things anymore. So yeah, I kind of go towards either movie ones and TV stuff as well. So yeah. One yellow Eric asks, "Hi Ali, I sit close to the press box at games. My question is, I'd like to know how you manage to stay so calm and focused during a game like yesterday when we win." I presume that'll be the West Ham game. As you are a massive Spurs fan that you are, while us Spurs fans are going crazy at times, surely you'd like to be doing the same as us normal punters. How do you keep yourself so professional? Thanks, Eric. I think I've probably touched on this one before, but when you kind of do, I guess, the job I have to do. I love doing my job. I have to, like it's a chore. But you get to see behind the curtain, a little bit Wizard of Oz style. You get to kind of know how things operate. You get to see the good and bad of a football club, and it probably gives you a slightly more measured take on things, and you don't go to extremes in either way. And unfortunately, one of the byproducts is it probably does strip away a little bit of the emotion, and I mean the good stuff. Some of the bad emotion isn't too bad. So when I was doing journalism stuff, a football result would affect my weekend. It really would. I'd be properly grumpy. Whereas now, I think my brain automatically is into, right, I've got to write about this. What topics am I going to take from this? What am I going to ask Antonio? What am I going to ask after the game? It's very much, your thought process has to be in a different way. And I think maybe doing stuff like this is quite cathartic as well. So I wouldn't say I am the massive fan type thing I probably was growing up and everything, because I think when it becomes your day job, I suppose it maybe beats that out of you a little bit. It's probably the way to say it. It's not to say that sometimes inside you're not going, wow, that was awesome, like that night in Amsterdam, with Lucas's third goal. That was incredible. And as I've always said, the White Hart Lane finale, honestly, that is... I'm not an emotional chap. I'm a bit of a 1950s kind of style bloke, probably not in touch with my emotions whatsoever, which isn't a good thing. But the White Hart Lane finale, yeah, that was a bit where I kind of was a bit like, this is pretty, this is one of these special moments kind of you're going to remember for a long, long time. Yeah, so there you go. Sorry, a bit of a long roundabout answer. That's not really a question, all that is a question mark. Remember a time not long ago when Spurs had games with 0 shots on target. This is a different animal now, says Mr. D66M. That is correct. This is very far away from the Nuno days. Okay. Mark asks, it seems Conte is very happy with his starting 11 now, plus Sessegnon and Skippy. I wonder what he thinks of the rest of his squad. I think you can probably tell by the lack of rotation, even when there were lots of games. I think that's what it's always about, isn't it? Especially with the whole kind of the rebuild element to it. It's building a squad, not just a team, and that's maybe always been Tottenham's problem. Conte made a kind of reference to it quite early when he came in, that he wants to be able to rotate and the quality not change. And I think that probably tells you everything you want to know. Okay, that's not a question. Mark Trower asks, who is the tall bald man who does the substitutes for Tottenham? There you go. I've answered that one earlier. Alan Dixon. And where is the furthest you've gone to see Tottenham? Probably be the pre-season tours, especially the last one, which was Singapore first, then Shanghai. That's probably the furthest, I'd imagine. There's been a few American ones. I think that'll be the longest. Hopefully, everything going well, I'll be hopefully heading to South Korea this summer for the return of the pre-season tour, which is just, I love the idea of South Korea. I love it. I love the whole culture. I just love it. A lot of it, going to Shanghai and Singapore was an incredible experience. I know South Korea is going to be different to that, and really looking forward to that as well. And obviously seeing the Sonny effect in person, we got to know about it in America when Sonny went to do a little appearance in, I think it was in Koreatown in LA. It was something to do with Mexican Spurs fans. It's a long story. It's probably one for another day. But essentially, he went to Koreatown and just fans came out of every kind of street suddenly, and he was submerged. And I'm just imagining that's what it's going to be like actually going to Korea. So yeah, very much looking forward to that. It'll be incredible. As long as hopefully, you never know with travel nowadays, but hopefully I'll be there. What else we got? These are all comments. Jack Mulkeren asks, any news on the stadium naming rights? Sadly, not at the moment. Not at the moment. I know Spurs are constantly having discussions with various interested parties. They just haven't found anything that kind of tickles their fancy, as it were. It's like, 3 years now. I don't know what's happening. Todd Klein obviously has come in as a new chief financial officer. It's probably not so new anymore. That is very much going to be in his remit to sort that out. And it's just, I guess Spurs have got an incredible product. If we're going to reduce it to a product, they really have. They've got a stadium that not only is one of the best football stadiums in the world, but it also is the only purpose-built NFL stadium outside of America. So that in itself, it's two huge selling points. And obviously for concerts and everything else, it's an incredible place. And I think it's about whatever figure they feel is the right figure for it to get your name on that stadium, because it is a stadium that is, I think it's only going to get bigger, and I do think probably one day you'll see an NFL franchise there as well. So yeah, I kind of get why they're holding out for the right one, but you also, there's a part of you that feels just, if you get that done, just think about the money that could go towards the team and stuff like that. There's always little bits and pieces, little rumours about potential investment coming into Tottenham and stuff. And I certainly know of one chap that was introduced around the training ground not too long ago, who is a very wealthy person, and probably not going to go into that too much right now. That's something that I'm kind of keeping an eye on, and exactly what that is, whether it's regarded. It may have just been a naming rights partner that didn't come to pass. It could be an investor. We'll see. But yeah, it's something I kind of want to properly look into. And as a, I don't think that would be the only time or only person that's got shown. There's always, every time we're there at a press conference, there's always important looking people being shown around all the time. And I mean, going back years, it could be anyone. It could be Yaya Toure. He was there when he was about to start doing his coaching stuff with Spurs that he's been doing with the academy, which was meant to be only a few days, and he's still there now. So yeah. I've always told that we only get to see a certain cross-section of people that get shown around Hotspur Way because they come maybe through the outside the press conference room, but actually it's a lot of people. I mean, John Terry was there this week, wasn't he? Watching England training. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. What else we got? Very nice comments, thank you. I'll read those out because it sounds like I've got a huge head, which I mean physically, yes, I kind of do. Okay, that's a good one. Benjamin Andrews asks, why can we land Romero, but it seems like we get beaten by higher profile teams for other transfers like Diaz? I can't seem to understand what happens behind the scenes. It's a really good question. I like that. It's not so I haven't liked the others, but it's a good question. I like the thinking behind it. It's true, because you'll see they'll get Romero, who is, absolutely was the best defender in Italy and potentially is going to be world class, really. And then you see Tanguy Ndombele, who, yes, with hindsight, it didn't work out, but at the time was one of the best young players in Europe. So Spurs can do it. I think it's a difficult one to compare to Diaz one, because Diaz always wanted to go to Liverpool. And it was a case, really, of his agents just essentially letting Liverpool know, look, you're going to move now if you want him, because Tottenham are in there. I think Champions League football plays a role with some players that they want to play in the top table competition. I think wages will also play a role if someone else can offer more. I think you'll always find that the targets Tottenham go for, on the whole, you don't hear too much about it until it's quite advanced. They like to try and keep things close to their chest, so it becomes more difficult for the person then to manoeuvre out of it. It does happen, like Willian. You remember that quite famously, him suddenly leaving his medical to go and join Chelsea. So it does happen. But, I think it's selling the package that is Tottenham Hotspur to the right people. If you're a Romero, you come to Tottenham and you're going to play it week in, week out. Maybe you go somewhere else to a bigger team and you've got less a chance of doing that. And also, sometimes players just really want to feel loved. They want to feel that you've done everything to try and get them. And I feel like with some of these players, Tottenham do that. But it doesn't work all the time, of course. And there's other reasons sometimes that stop them. They won't go the extra financial mile to get them. It can be anything. It can be something that happens on the player's side or the selling club side that just don't want to sell. And but yeah, no, it's a really good question. Richard Pugh asks, do we realistically stand a chance of signing a Dybala? And if so, would this mean Kulusevski goes to be a bench player? Dybala's an interesting one. He's obviously it just feels very 2019. This rumor. We were out in Shanghai when we got wind of all the Dybala stuff the first time around. I'd say now, look, don't get me wrong, he's a class player. He is. He's absolute quality. I'm watching the Amazon All or Nothing Juventus series at the moment, about halfway through, and you can see even in that when he plays, he's class. And I think the problem, unfortunately, with him right now is the when he plays. He's got a pretty rotten injury record at the moment. He obviously had a bad, it was his medial ligament. It was a knee problem he had. Was it last season that kept him out for a long time? No, sorry, maybe the season before that. Then, it was last season. I mixed up my time frames. But he's missed a lot of matches. I think even this season, he's missed something like 14, 15 games with various little muscle problems. And the issue is obviously yes, at the moment it's looking like he'll be a free agent. He'll be able to go anywhere he probably wants. I think is he 28 now? He is a class player, but I just wonder with the amount of money that would spend. I don't know. I've seen some report that say Fabio Paratici is a huge fan and wants him desperately. From kind of what I've been hearing, I don't know if he is that desperate to sign him. I mean, it may come down to the fact that whether Conte really wants him. If Conte does, maybe they push that bit harder. I do think Champions League football would play a big role as well. And sometimes these players that they prefer to stay in the country they've been playing in. He may want to just stay in Italy. I think there's been some talk that potentially could. Keep an eye on that one. And in terms of Kulusevski, it would be a huge shame. I think Kulusevski's class. Well, I think he's class. Anyone that watches these. And interestingly, watching that All or Nothing show, you see how good he was for Juventus when he started as well. And I'm hoping to see, maybe it comes up in this one or not, why he started to drift a little bit out of the team. But so far, there's little comments about his training that he needs to do a little bit more maybe. But, all of that is in his past, and that probably will have helped kind of give him the experience of what he's come to, because he loves Tottenham. He's already said that. I saw an interview the other day where he was talking to Swedish media, and he's saying, I absolutely love it. And that's great. That's what you want. That's what you want more of. I think it would be a huge shame if he, obviously you want competition, so you do want stronger options to have there. But I really love the balance of Kulusevski, Son and Kane. I think it just works so well. That's not a question. That's someone talking about my poltergeist impression that was a bit weird last week. That's not a question really. It's talking about Dembele. The Bentancur Dembele comparison that I kind of came up with last week. Which is true. There we go. What would it take... Spursy. Spursy asks, what would it take for Spurs to challenge for the Premier League title or the Champions League? Conte thus far hasn't really proven himself to be a Champions League challenger in terms of... I don't think that's what he'd aim for Spurs. And that's what I mean. He obviously has... he's won Europa League, hasn't he? So, did you win the Europa League or get to the final? I'm having memory issues today, big time. But anyway, he has, some people kind of write him off that he's terrible in Europe. He's not. It's probably the one thing that is lacking in his managerial CV. But I think Premier League-wise, that's where it will be for him. That's where he'll concentrate. And I think if they wanted to challenge for the Premier League, I think you probably do need another top draw centre-back. I think, a wing-back or two as well. Central midfield starting to look sorted. Probably one more body in there. Because like I said before, I'd imagine maybe Harry Winks will look for more regular football next season somewhere. And then, of course, another striker. It's like Kulusevski now has actually become suddenly really important. And you even look at that and you wonder if you lost him to an injury or something, I don't think Lucas or maybe even Steven Bergwijn provide the same thing that he does. He's a bit of a playmaker, and this is kind of, we've always said we were missing with Eriksen. I think Kulusevski could maybe, it's very, very early days, but if he continues what he's doing, he might be able to fill that gap that Eriksen left at Spurs. Yeah, so I'd say that. I'd say you'd need at least another centre back. I know they want to look at a left-sided centre back. Another wing back, probably a right wing back, unless Reguilon were to leave. If Real Madrid took up their option to sign him. And then probably another playmaker and a striker. So what's that? Potentially four. Four, and I mean top quality signings. If they could finish fourth or fifth, you could just see there's just that little bit extra, and I think that would give it to them. I'm not entirely sure how you pronounce this, but their name is RXRYAG. Asks, if you had to make a prediction now, do you think Kane will break Alan Shearer's record? Yes, I do think he will break it. I just hope it's at Tottenham. That's probably what I'd say about that. Altair asks, have you any insights into why Joe Rodon gets so few opportunities even when Eric was out? I don't. I really don't. It's one that's puzzled me because Conte gave this kind of rave review about him when he talks about him. When I've asked him a couple of times, and he kind of said that thing about how he was Eric Dyer's backup. So essentially, we all assumed as soon as Eric Dyer came out, Joe Rodon would step into the place, and he didn't. And look, at the time, it was a little bit awkward because he was carrying a really bad rib injury. He'd fractured a rib on one side. Then he played in the Morecambe game and he fractured a rib on the other side with really like a freak elbow into it. So he hasn't had the best of luck. But yeah, when Dyer was out, we saw Davinson Sanchez playing that central role, which really didn't suit him. We saw Christian Romero playing there. It didn't quite suit him either. And yeah, I don't know. And like I said, Antonio Conte has just apparently given a rave review of Rodon's performance against Austria for Wales, and you just kind of think, is his chance gone now, though? This is the thing with all these games now, pretty much always one a week now. I think we'll get to some, and I think Joe Rodon will move on to another club. I just hope for Tottenham's sake they make it a loan, because I think he's going to go somewhere and do very well. And they let him go permanently. I do think they'll live to regret it. I do. The RYRY asks, Ali, do you think PSG will try and go for Conte in the summer? It's a job. I think they'd like him. I don't know whether it has quite the competition that Conte would love. I think he probably would want to be in one of the biggest leagues, and with no disrespect to the French league, but it probably isn't right now. And obviously with PSG, the key for them is the Champions League. And as we've kind of said with Conte, I don't think that's always been his biggest priority. So I don't know whether that's a good fit or not. We'll find out, I guess. We'll find out. Indy's having dreams. He's like constantly going in his sleep. Which, as long as he doesn't just suddenly wake up and start barking like a madman. Or mad dog. What else we got questions-wise? Aidan Carlin asks, are there any relatively unknown youth players at Tottenham who you think will be likely to break through to the first-team squad in the next few years? The difficulty with the pandemic was it kind of got me out of my rhythm of going to see a lot of youth matches. And it's one that, because of Spurs' amount of matches, I really haven't got back into. And it's been a real annoying thing that I need to get back into. So I haven't seen enough of them in the flesh. Which I used to. I used to be going, pretty much, almost every under-23s home game I was at, and also the FA Youth Cup games. And I've just had a mare. I know the club are doing this new service, aren't they, in the summer, that you'll be able to watch them live. But that's good. But as I've always said, I don't think you see everything watching on a TV. You don't get to see kind of runs off the ball, the movement, everything. Certainly from kind of what I can say, I think Jamie Donnelly's going to be a very talented young striker. He's kind of developing quite nicely. Obviously, we know about Dane Scarlet. He scored a cracking header as well against Republic of Ireland for England under-19s. He's got a great record for England under-19s this season. Alfie Devine scored his first... Well, I thought it was just his first goal for England under-19s, but I think he put something on one of his social media things saying it was his first international goal. So that was a big moment for him. Obviously, you know about Alfie Devine. in terms of others, yeah, I probably don't want to pick out too many names right now because I think it would be a bit unfair. I haven't seen others, and I might be leaving other people out that are big stars. There's a young man whose name I completely murder every time I try to say it. Saying Roshan Mathurin, I think it is something like that, and I'm absolutely apologise to him and anyone that knows him with that awful pronunciation. But I know he was really coming on strong, and there was a lot of hope for him coming through. And I think he got a bad injury. So hopefully, hopefully he's out or coming towards the other side of that now, and out of that. Like I say, this is my problem right now: is that Spurs' first team have been all-encompassing and an utter mess at times. It's kind of taken up my attention, whereas I'm going to try and get back into that as well. I think now being able to be at stuff first, but in person again, is brilliant. And so I'm going to get back to getting to a lot of these games, and I'll be able to answer questions like that a lot better. What more we got? Oh, it's exactly the same question about the title again from someone else. Welsh Guide to 2014. Lots of praise for Sonny, which is quite right. Wow, this is going to be a tough one. Steve W asks, I know you're a fan of Sopranos, so I have a football Sopranos question. Which of the current squad would be 1, a great mob boss or Tony, or 2, be a great Silvio, second in command? Wow. I mean, back in the day, it was always about Martin Joel, wasn't it? And I know Martin Joel quite well. And I suppose that was actually before I watched Sopranos that I used to really talk to him a fair bit when I was working with him on some stuff. In this squad, I don't know, they're quite young, aren't they? I can't imagine Eric Dyer. He's very clever. I can imagine if someone was going to be like the brains of the outfit, the mastermind of some big organisation, it would probably be Eric Dyer. Second in command, probably go for another clever chap like Ben Davies. He's quite clever. He's very clever. I think both of them actually have done degrees outside of football while playing football. So, yeah, I think you're going to have the brains in those two roles. So I'm going to go for that. There's no real comparisons to make with Sopranos characters. I think they're all, they're quite diverse as Sopranos characters. I don't think they probably fit the model of a professional footballer. This seems to be a theme. Matthias Damas asks, if Conte is the godfather, who in the Spurs squad is Michael and who is Fredo? Ooh. Funny enough, I've just been watching Godfather Part 2 yesterday. Again. Michael, I guess, would have to be... I'm going to go against everything I've just said about The Sopranos by picking someone completely different. But I think Conte absolutely adores Harry Kane. So I'd go for Harry Kane. Maybe Harry Kane for the now, from Michael Corleone. But he also adores Oliver Skipp. And as Oliver Skipp's been called the long-term future captain of Tottenham Hotspur, maybe he's the Michael Corleone in the making. Maybe he's the Michael Corleone from the first film, when he comes as like a returning from the war soldier who isn't in the family business yet. Let's say Skippy's there right now. Fredo, nah, I'm not going to go there. That's not fair because essentially we know what happens with Fredo, so that would be painting someone in a negative light. And I'm probably not. That's not fair. I don't think anyone is a particular Fredo. Dennis Martin asks, they're getting probably varied these questions now. What is your favourite food? Do you get good meals provided when you cover away games? Right, that's an interesting one. So, favourite food, sushi or Chinese? I love both of those. Love a bit of, both of those. In terms of food provided, we get media food at every ground. Obviously, during the pandemic, it became a bit more difficult. They weren't able to, so we were very sad. Chelsea used to be the best. Chelsea was incredible media food put on. I'd probably say Spurs is the best now. Spurs is lovely. It's really nice. And again, of course, very fortunate we are to go in there and get whatever they're serving up on a match day. Certainly not something we take for granted. What else we got? Sven524 says, great to see Paul Coit back. Are the club starting to listen to fans at last? Sorry. It was lovely to see Paul Coit back, back doing his halftime stuff. If you don't know who Paul Coit is, he's the chap that grabs a microphone at halftime and usually interviews someone on the pitch, and then he does kind of an up the Spurs as he hands back as the team are about to come back out for the second half. I don't know entirely what happened there. From what I can understand, it was a red zone issue in that during the pandemic, there was a red zone which existed where only certain people around the club were allowed in certain areas, and one of those was pitch side. That's what I was told, that it was to do with that, and now those measures are easing. He's allowed back. If there's more to it, there may well be. I don't know. But Paul's a lovely guy, absolutely lovely guy. Spoken to him a fair few times. We did back in the old podcast days before it was Golden Guest Talk Tottenham. I sat down for like an hour with him and chatted. And there's a guy that's got brilliant memories of Tottenham and all the things that have happened. He really is a absolutely lovely guy. I think he's on radio. He was on radio. He certainly was doing TalkSport 2, I think. I think he might do some TV now as well. But no, honestly, lovely, lovely guy. And knows Tottenham inside out. Joe Burr has given me a load of questions. I'll rattle through a couple of these because they're quite different to the other ones. Spurs one, do you think it's likely Lucas might move on in the summer? Depends how unhappy he is. It seems like he's quite settled. The only thing I'd say with Lucas is he is someone that Spurs could get a bit of money for. And if they feel that they want to put that money towards somewhere else and he wants to get more regular football, then maybe that's something that happens. Kulusevski's impact has really pushed him to the sidelines, but things change so quickly in football. We'll see, but he's a potential. And a non-football one, favourite place you've ever travelled and why? I love loads of places. I love New York. New York is one of my favourite places in the world. Like I say, I loved Singapore and Shanghai as well when I went to them with Spurs. I love America, quite frankly. If that's one of the other places in the world I could live, it's either America or Italy. I do love Italy. Very fortunate to go to quite a few places in Italy. Went to Lisbon, which I think I said in one of the videos, which I loved recently. Love Barcelona. I've probably just said a million things, but if you're going to say one favourite place, it's New York. I think just because everywhere you go, it's like you're in a movie. You recognise it from something you've watched. It is like walking through, pretty much a movie set every time you walk down a different street. And I love it. Absolutely love it. Favourite film series? Indiana Jones. Hence why I've got a dog called Indy sitting right next to me. Right. I'll probably answer too many of Joe's there, and I've got to get other people's. Let's have a look. God, this is a very different one. Tazwar asks, I don't know if you've seen all of them, but how would you rank all the Batman movies? Oh man, that's a really long question. So I have seen them all. The Batman I saw recently, it's good. It's good. I probably still prefer the Nolan trilogy. Dark Knight Rises obviously was superb. Then I really like Batman Begins. I really like that. Then underneath that, they start to get a little bit more kind of. I rewatched the original Batman a couple of weeks back after watching The Batman, and Michael Keaton is a terrific Batman. He's really good. I'm looking forward to seeing him come back in it's the Flashpoint movie, isn't it? Or the Flash. He comes back in that. So I'd say that. I'll go with my top two, which are Dark Knight Rises and Batman Begins. Max I asks, I've answered that bit, so I'll answer this bit. Favourite player the Spurs Academy has ever produced? It's got to be Harry Kane or Oliver Skip. Harry Kane because he is just absolutely world class, and Oliver Skip because him and Sonny are probably up there my two favourite players right now. So, they're my two. Jamie Fisher. Hi Ali, do you agree that Cars is the best Pixar animation? Ooh. I really used to like The Incredibles. I'm not really into too many animations. Obviously, when my kids were younger, I'd watch a fair few of them. Used to really. It's not Pixar, obviously. It was more early Disney when they started to use CGI, but really loved Aladdin many years ago purely because I'm a huge Robin Williams fan, and it was just like I just love the way that they created that. It was essentially let Robin Williams do what he does, and we'll draw a character around what he's doing. And yeah, I used to enjoy. Used to say many of the things that he would say in that. What else we get? Favourite movie soundtrack? Asked Matt Barden. It would be Indiana Jones. I like essentially John Williams. I love a lot of John Williams stuff. You know a John Williams theme when you hear it, and that may be Superman. I love the Superman theme tune. It could be Indiana Jones. It could be Star Wars. So even other stuff from other kind of Spielberg kind of movies as well. Like I think he. What else did he do as well? I suppose he would have done Colour Purple. I think he did Colour Purple as well. And some of the more obviously Harry Potter. I'm not. My daughter's hugely into Harry Potter, whereas I probably kind of reached that a little bit later in my life. That sounds like I'm always dead. Hopefully I'm not. But yeah, no. Anything John Williams does, I love. I love his work. Højbjerg, Skip, Bentancur. Once all three are fully fit and when playing with two in the middle, which two do you think will be Conte's preferred pairing? I think long term, unless something happens, I think Skip and Bentancur could be a superb one. I think he's got a very tough choice coming up between the three of them, though, because they all bring a little something different. And I'll be intrigued. I mean, when we talk about competition, that's exactly it. That is exactly kind of what you're looking for, and you've got some really, really good. There's some really good options there. They're excellent. Another one about free kicks. It's a difficult one. Joshua Burke asks, "What's your ideal food and drink for a football match, watching from home and in the stadium?" Obviously, in the stadium, again, we're very fortunate to get media food. If I'm watching a match from home. I don't know. I don't normally just sit with food if I'm watching a match at home. I'm normally kind of doing something else at the same time while watching it. I think I'm so used to, and this is weird. This is maybe me sitting on I was going to say like a kind of a therapy couch kind of thing, or an analyst kind of getting this on my brain. But I think now because I'm so used to watching football matches while also running a match blog, writing player ratings, writing some talking points for after the game, or starting them at least. While doing all of that while watching a game. I think now when I watch a match at home, just on the telly, I kind of almost have to be doing something else as well. It's really weird. It's like my brain has to juggle stuff. So yeah, I don't really just sit there and eat. Might be doing something on my laptop. Might be just, I don't know, just mucking around, I guess, or being with the family as well. What else we got? Okay, that's an interesting one. Joe Menjivar asks, Spurs social media, especially YouTube, has changed a lot over the past season. We no longer get a lot of the fun, silly stuff we used to, like players playing cricket, doing trivia about teammates, playing Uno, or doing a crossbar challenge. I always thought they were a fun way to get to know... God, this is a very long question. I've just hit read more. Essentially, in essence, saying that it's more this slightly more serious stuff now. I don't know if that's entirely the case. I think... there was a nice little bit called Pals that Joe Roden and Ben Davies did the other day. That was quite nice. And also, they do little sponsor things sometimes. So there was one where it was two pairs trying to do keepy uppies. I think it was Son and Session against Roden and Davies. They were trying to do keepy uppies and get the ball in the car boot and stuff like that. I think they still do those. But maybe you're onto something. Maybe Conte just wants them to get down and work, and that's what they do. What else we got here? Isaac says, how much should we pay to re-sign own goal to another contract? Yeah, a lot of own goals this season in Spurs' favour. I'd like to think that's because of the quality of the low crossing that's been too difficult for players to clear. It's a long question from James Riddett, but essentially, do you think we'll see Spurs press more over time, or is this slightly more counter-attacking style intentional? It's about selective moments. I almost remember Poch, I think it was, that said that he had to evolve the pressing because it's such a draining tactic. He essentially had to evolve it to become something where it's selective pressing, and I think that's what's happened at Tottenham. Sometimes you'll see them press high, and sometimes you'll see them drop back and look to counter. Sometimes, often in the same match. So I think it is intentional. I don't think they just accidentally fall into these ways of playing. Let's have a look. Nizuko-chan asks, what do you think Conte's demands for the squad will be in the summer? 3 quality players, 4 quality players? I think his demand is quite simple, is that we need to challenge. We need to show the same ambition that he's got, and I do think that's 3 to 4 very good signings that are ready for the Premier League straight away. And that may be that some are a bit more experienced. Again, harking back to this Amazon All or Nothing Juventus series I'm watching at the moment, they've just played and lost to Inter Milan, and the way they talk about Conte, the reverence. Pirlo, he essentially says it's because of Conte became a coach. There's a bit quite interesting early on. I think it's the first episode when they're doing pre-season training, and they're like, some of these players look knackered. And they're like, can you imagine what they would have been like under Conte? He'd have killed them. And it's like, there's this real thing at Juventus where they still talk about Conte and his impact. And I just really hope that we can all say that about Tottenham in 10, 15 years' time. Can you remember what Conte did at Spurs? And still got these long lingering after effects of success. Really hope so. That's not a question. Oh, interesting. Christopher Campbell asks, if you were to benchmark Reguilon against the best left-back, left wing-back Spurs have had in recent generations, who would the benchmark be for what Conte wants? Ziga, Rose, Asuakoto, Edinburgh, Torrico. I think Rose at his prime was probably the best out of that bunch, I'd say. Obviously we had that season when Rose and Walker were absolutely probably the best fullback pairing maybe in Europe. They were that good. I think that's probably, peak Rose is what you'd have to measure Reguilon against. And I think we didn't really get to see Rose play as a wing-back, but I'd imagine he'd have been pretty good at it. I think maybe his assists was the one area that he could have improved. It's difficult because your kind of memory's slightly tainted with the Danny Rose after his knee injury, and you kind of forget just how very good he was. We'll see. Matt Moore asks, I recall that you and your family moved into a new house and the blue wall behind you was going to be painted. I noticed the wall is still blue and hasn't had a fresh coat of paint yet. Mrs. Gold must be a very patient and understanding wife. I wouldn't get away with that. Any plans to decorate? Probably not right now. Do you know what? I quite like this wall. I'm quite attached to it. When I moved in, this was the family that hears before, the little boy's bedroom, funny enough. I think he was only very little, like maybe 2 years old, very, very young. And it had all stars and moons on the ceiling, which were luminous in the night. And I remember doing one of my first Zoom press conferences and forgetting they were there. So my laptop screen was kind of slightly, you could see up. And there was another journalist went, what's all that stuff over the ceiling? I was like, oh, and I had to quickly kind of move the laptop screen down slightly so they couldn't see what was above me. They've all now been taken down and kind of put filler over because most of them pulled off bits of the ceiling plaster, which wasn't great. So that is a job to do. So yeah, I'm probably not going to change these walls at this time. Maybe need a fresh coat of paint at some point, but I just think it was quite apt. It looks quite bright here, but it is actually kind of more of a navy blue, which kind of suits what I'm doing. But yeah, when the sunlight's on it, it does look a bit lighter. But it's loving the diversity of the questions today. We've had about home decoration, we've had about movies, TV, Spurs, everything. So thank you for that. I do enjoy them, as you can probably tell. Wow. Oh, this is one that probably needs me to do a lot more thinking about. If you had to pick a Spurs 11 from your lifetime, who would it be? I'll tell you what, I'll read out his. It's KH Lowe's his name is. And his team would be Friedel in goal. Yes, really, he puts in brackets. Carr, Bale, Goff, Vertonghen, and in midfield, Modric, Gaza, Hoddle, Eriksson, and up front, Lineker and Kane. I'd have to have a proper think about it to get a decent answer. I would have Lloris in goal. I think Lloris has been the best goalkeeper I've seen at Spurs. Right back would probably be Walker over Carr for me. Vertonghen definitely. Vertonghen Alderweireld, I think you'd have to go in there. Midfield's a nightmare. Honestly, I'd have to get Gaza. Hoddle was slightly before me, but I used to get, my dad had gave me these, or bought me these Greavesy 6 of the best Spurs ones, and I used to always watch Glenn Hoddle in action. I was probably just too young when he first came on the scene to really remember him, kind of watching him live. Lineker was my hero growing up. I'd have a nightmare with the up-front stuff as well, because Lineker was my hero growing up. Then Teddy became it. Then obviously Harry Kane for me is like a generational striker. He's incredible. So God knows how I'd fit all three in there. I will think about that and I will come back to you and maybe say it in the next video. I think I may have done it. There may be an article somewhere. I feel like I've answered that, and maybe I've done subs as well. I might dig it out and maybe I'll answer that question with it. Here's a good question. Sharon Fellingham asks, why are some parts of a press conference embargoed? Right, well, the reason behind that is, you might notice that I'll put out loads of stuff from a press conference we have to wait until the broadcast section finishes and then we're able to put out what was said in it. So let's say the press conference is at 1:30. Normally the broadcast section is about 15 minutes and you'll see me put out quotes and stuff from it about 1:45, let's say. Then we have another embargo section, which is a 10:30 section. And what that is, it's mostly on the day of the press conference. That is for the national newspapers to have stories that they can hold back for their next morning's headline. But obviously with the advent of online media, it's allowed to go out that night. And then we also, for the Evening Standard, often Dan Kilpatrick will get a midday line for the next day that can go in his newspaper. It's one of those where I don't mind it. It gives me nice 3 time slots where I can put out different stories. Means they split up and don't all get buried in one go. Will it be something that we'll see continuing forever? I'd probably say not. Purely because I think we're at a stage now where print media, unfortunately, is obviously declining. And I'm very much a man that's come from print media. I worked in local newspapers for a long time, more than a decade and a half. And obviously I've had to kind of tackle the issues with print, the decline of print, and obviously so much more now being available online. And I think embargoes may eventually become a thing of the past. Probably not in the immediate future, but I do think in the long term, probably. But yeah, there you go. Hopefully that would explain it. Thomas Knisek, Knizek, asks, would you rather... Whoa, this is a weird one. Would you rather milk an Alistair Gold-sized goat or a goat-sized Alistair Gold? Yeah, I don't really want to milk myself either as a goat or a me. I'd probably say no to both. That was a strange question. Not a bad question, just a strange one. Apologies, I'm also very wary that I'm looking down a lot in this video. It's because I've got all the questions down here on this tablet that I'm looking at. So apologies if you have seen the top of my head a lot. Right. Ross Gurren asks, are Spurs likely to spend the money this summer without selling Kane? Or sell Kane and use that funds to build a team? I think Spurs have got to spend money. Well, regardless. I hope they keep Harry Kane. I hope they say, like I've said it a million times, this is a crossroads summer, and I think the board at Spurs, Daniel Levy, they have to look at this as a summer to progress and push on, because they can't afford to start again. I think it would end up being more costly for them in the long run to start again. Right now, they're on the precipice of being able to get back into the Champions League and then hopefully really challenge next season. I think if they can keep Conte and Kane, build around them, suddenly it becomes a very different club. And I think it's really exciting. And I just hope they don't lapse into old ways. Kurt Smith, for your Q&A, I'm keen to know what music you like. I had a really weird kind of upbringing. My dad was much older than my mum, 24 years older than my mum, who's no longer with us anymore. But my original music influence was so varied because of that. So he, being much older, liked the real older stuff. He liked the crooners, so he liked the Sinatra, the Rat Pack. So, I had a lot of that growing up, and I love their kind of music now, which I know he's not probably seen as the coolest guy in the world, but I think I will sometimes like, if Bublé, let's say, comes on the radio, I like that because I think it harks back to my kind of year as a kid listening to a lot of the crooner songs. Even Max Bygraves, there's a name for those much older viewers and listeners. My dad used to listen to him way back in the day, and if you're not aware of who Max Bygraves was, he was kind of like, I don't know how to describe him. He was a bit like a British crooner in a way, but not really cool. He was kind of more maybe for the families, for the family music. Whereas my mum, she was quite into Elvis and a bit of the Beatles as well. So, yeah, I'd say I don't know. And then I was properly mixed growing up. I used to like a bit of Bryan Adams when I was younger as well. Aerosmith. I'm very eclectic in my music taste. When my daughter, whether it's my wife taking her to school or me taking her to school, she gets very different musical experiences. My wife's car, there'll be a lot of, she loves her Latiny music, she loves her dance music, things with a beat, whereas I'm probably more about the vocal kind of music. So in my car, she could get, Aretha Franklin respect kind of Motown music one moment. It could suddenly switch to, who knows, even a bit of country music in there maybe. I went to Nashville on the Spurs pre-season tour, and I came away a little bit obsessed with something like Lady Antebellum and music like Rascal Flatts. So honestly, even in that short little snippet of what I've told you, you can see how bizarrely mixed up my my kind of musical tastes are. A bit of Ed Sheeran I like. Honestly, all over the place. You'd probably name it, and I'd probably like some of their music. Which is, but like I say, I actually probably listen to podcasts more. So, yeah. So there you go. Jan, Jan, asks, can you please talk a little on how your work looks like on getting the news and info out of the club? Having worked as a PR officer myself, I know often it's telling journalists no comment in as many different variations as possible. Is it hard to get comments, confirmation, or speculations, interviews with players, or do you need to speak with players, media teams instead to get the most updated? It's a bit of everything. Spurs are a club that like to keep a lot in-house, so they can be quite tough to kind of get stuff out of. So yes, you go to other sources, whether that is people around players, whether that is just other people in the industry, whether that's scouts, agents, anything. And obviously then people in and around the club as well. Wouldn't be the normal channels you'd go through. Spurs press boys are a decent lot though. They'll help you if they can. There's obviously so much they can say and what they can't say. And obviously they're not really ones. There's this kind of, how do I put it? There's this feeling sometimes I think this is all football fans. I think it's just Spurs fans that clubs try to manipulate what goes out there in the media. And kind of in my experience, that's quite rare. Once in a while you'll go to them with something and you can kind of tell that they're trying to not steer you away, but steer you towards the slightly more sanitized version that they'd like to be believed. But I think we're pretty much savvy enough to know when that's happening, and it's quite rare. Like I said, they're a decent bunch in the Spurs press team. They're a good group of guys, and yeah, if they can help, they will. In terms of interviews, we often, if you're obviously not at matches, but away from matches, they'll do community interviews. So when Spurs players are doing something in the community, one or two journalists each time will get a chance to go and talk to a player. And I've had some really good ones through that. I've had sit down with Serge Aurier for about half an hour. It was really enlightening. Got Tanguy Ndombele for a good almost 45 minutes. Which was really fascinating. I was spoken to Jaffet, Tanganga, Skippy. We've had loads. I love when we do the pre-season tours, we get almost every player to chat to for a while. They're great. They really are. So, yeah, it's, I wouldn't say they're easy. I come from non-league, League Two kind of background before I did Spurs. So obviously there, I could rock up and interview as many people as I like. I'd sometimes be the only journo at a match, and I would just wait by the side of the pitch after the game or in the corridor after the game, and I would talk to every player I wanted to. It's not like that in the Premier League, but hopefully, with a lot of the restrictions kind of easing now, I think we'll get back to a lot of mixed zone interviews again. So it's hey, managed to somehow make it work this long. Managed to get enough, info from various areas and sources and people and all of that. So it seems to be working. So we get by, and I appreciate your concern. Though. Thank you very much, Jan. That's another Dybala question. What else we got? That's another money in the summer one. Another interesting one. Honestly, you guys have really surpassed yourself with a lot of these questions. Not to say they haven't been good in the past, but there's a nice level of diversity in these. I like these. So Daniel Bourne asks, would you rather be locked in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and never be allowed to leave for the rest of your life, or never be allowed to attend the stadium again? Tottenham Hotspur. Oh, I've got such a connection with that stadium because you might remember I used to do all the videos and walk around the live Facebook videos as I walked around them. So I've got a proper connection with that stadium. I watched it kind of grow and then to get in there. And someone found a photo. They took a photo of the press area in the first, I think it was the test game, it would have been the first one. Spurs under 18s playing Southampton. And they got this photo of me, and it's I don't like photos of myself at all, but I quite like the fact that you can see the on my face as I'm just kind of looking around, loving it. And it was purely, they just happened to capture that moment. It was a lady on Twitter who kind of tagged me in it. So I love that stadium. I used to love White Hart Lane because it always made me think of my dad. He would take me there. But the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is kind of, he was gone by the time that was being built, and it's kind of like, I suppose it's a new chapter. It's like my stadium that I kind of watched grow up as a child, as in the stadium was a child, not me. That is a tough question. I guess if you're on a practical level, unfortunately, you'd have to never be in the stadium again because then you've got the rest of the world to be, whereas rather instead you're stuck in the stadium for the rest of your life. So at a practical level, and because my family would probably be very annoyed, I'd have to pick not going in there ever again. Even that's very, very sad. Adam Barkley asks, Alistair, would you want Spurs to go back for Walker Peters? I wish they hadn't let him go. Anyone that knows me knows I was a big Walker Peters fan. I didn't understand why he'd play really well, maybe have one slightly tough game or get an injury, and then he'd get left out. And he'd just get these little bursts of a couple of games, and that was it. And I think we're seeing now that he's really maturing into a really good right back. And I think as a wing back, he'd have been superb. But I'd love him to go back for him one day, but I don't know if that will happen. What's another Dybala one? I really love the fact that I said about the Jiggo's Q&A last week, and quite a few of you went and read it, and it makes me laugh just seeing little quotes from it. Okay, I think I'll answer one. Oh no, Fired Zin, Fiaid Zin. Fired Zin asks, what Star Wars character will you be, and what is your favourite movie? Star Wars character, it's got to be Han Solo. He was my favourite character from Star Wars growing up. Favourite movie of all time is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Favourite Star Wars movie, it's probably Star Wars A New Hope. Because just as a kid, that was when I was introduced to Han Solo, and the moment when he swoops in to kind of save the day for Luke. I love that. Although Empire Strikes Back was really cool, but as a kid I was kind of traumatised because Han Solo then got frozen in carbonite. Sorry, spoiler there, towards the end of the movie, which I used to hate. But yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favourite film. That one's... The SJD001 asks... Yeah, similar stuff. Naming rights people asks us, is your all-time favourite player? As a kid, it was probably Gary Lineker, to be honest. Because I was a striker, as a kid growing up, and I think I always looked up to him. Funnily enough, I've had a few opportunities to interview him, which I haven't taken over recent years. I really should do that at some point. I keep giving them to Guesty. I think Guesty's done a load of them. Dybala again. A lot of people want to know about Dybala. Stu Mac asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for the pre-season coming up? In terms of the location being South Korea, some new faces playing under Conte, and hopefully a good setup. If everything goes to plan, very excited. Honestly, if Conte's backed and getting to go to South Korea, having the whole pre-season thing, a Conte pre-season will be huge for this club and for those players. If it all happens right, I'll be very excited. Adam Carter says, what movie would you use to sum up being a Spurs fan? God, it could be anything. It could be any of the disaster movies, couldn't it? Where things seem to be going right and then suddenly they go completely wrong. It's a difficult one, that. I mean, gone in 60 seconds, that could be Spurs, couldn't it? Anything, honestly. They can chuck it away so quickly in football. They just manage to. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't really have an answer to that one. Harry Atwood, not a Spurs question, but what advice would you give to a young journalist seeking career in football media? This is what I always say. I get a lot of young journalists coming and asking stuff, which I really like doing. I try and answer as many as I can, as quickly as I can. Sometimes I get bogged down and don't get back to them for a week or so, but I always try to get back. What I always say, one of the main key points, write a lot, write so much, because if you truly love journalism and writing, you're going to have to be writing non-stop as a career. You've got to really have the passion for writing if you want to do it as a career, because you do get some people who love the idea of being able to write about a football match, but actually when they get into it, the actual scale of the work you have to do, I mean, look, we're not saving lives, we're not nurses and doctors, we're not going down mines or anything, but in terms of actual work, there's a lot more than people probably think there is. They'll see us swan up to a football match and go, well, these rubbish ratings, I could rate these players better than that. That's just like the tip of the iceberg of what we kind of have to do. And so, yeah, I'd always say write as much as you can, even as a young kind of wannabe reporter, because not only are you building up your portfolio of stuff, send it off to places, talk to websites. You know, when I was very young, I used to, when I was way back, I'd write columns for Spurs Community, the Spurs website, just back in the day, and that kind of really helped me kind of get into the mindset of being able to write and stuff like that. And then I'd start writing even letters to local newspapers, just anything to just try and get my work in print, whether it be online or in a paper, whatever. And then that's something you can then take to newspapers and just be willing to put yourself out there. That's another thing I sometimes find with young journalists, is that they like the idea of where they're going to get to, but they don't want to do the work that gets them there. And you've got to show a willingness. You've got to constantly almost be slightly annoying and pushing yourself at people and like, please give me this. Let me write this. I've got an idea for this story. Can I write it for you? And then as you go through all your various terms of qualification that you have to do, probably, likely a degree, or there's a lot of fast-track journalism courses you can do as well. It all packages together. And at the end of it, you're a journalist with a good array, a good portfolio of stuff to sell yourself in a way, to then get a job and do what you want, I suppose if I'm going to use a Harrison Ford kind of comparison, because I'm going to stick with the Han Solo thing, Harrison Ford quite famously became an actor, but then also had to go back to carpentry, and then became, he was no overnight success in any way. And I guess for me, I'm not comparing myself to the scale of Harrison Ford or anything like that, but I didn't just suddenly rock up and I was covering Spurs. I had a good, about 12 years, 13 years of journalism career behind me first, doing news journalism, doing local sport, doing non-league football. I took a long time and worked my way up there. So there's a lot of work involved. And like I say, you've got to really love it. Because, it's great. When you get there, it's fantastic. And I've still got, you're always learning. I'm in no way the finished product whatsoever. There's still so much more I can learn. So much more I can learn about writing, the craft of writing. So, yeah, Always be open to learning. Right, I think I'm probably going to have to wrap up there unless one just catches my eye in the next second. Oh yeah, someone thought I was doing a Linda Blair impression of the Poltergeist. It's not Linda Blair. There's a little lady whose name's gone out of my head. Linda Blair was the Exorcist, not Poltergeist. I wanted to do one more before I went. That's not footballing. Which Godfather film is your favourite? It'd be the second one because I love the fact that it goes back and forth between the Michael Corleone era and young Vito as De Niro. That's very cool. There you go. I wanted to finish on the Spurs one. Alex Donnewell asks, which of the loaned out players from the senior squad do you think still has a realistic long-term future at Spurs? I think you're probably talking about, I'm guessing, mainly the bigger players. Tongi, I think it'll be tough to get back now unless they just cannot sell him. Lo Celso, I'd expect will move on. Brian Hill, I really hope has a long-term future. I think he just needs to bulk up. But I think there's an incredibly talented player there. So if you're going to go from that list, probably Brian Hill out of them. And then obviously there's other players. I still think Keona Tete could have a very good career. Troy Parrott has been coming on this season, doing very well as well. So there's plenty to watch out for there. But yeah, among those main three that went out, the big money signings, probably Hill, I'd say. Right, I'm going to head off there. That was a proper all over the place Q&A. There were questions of all kinds of sorts, and I really enjoyed that. Sorry, I was just looking to see if there was any other major ones that I just missed. Someone asking me my best ever, most memorable breakfast. That's a random one. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Although I went to Lake Garda with my family. There was a hotel there that had a lovely breakfast. It's utterly unimportant for anyone to know, though. But thank you for the question. So yeah, on that weird note, press conference on Friday, talking about the Newcastle match with Conte. Conte obviously has had a few little trips, I think, back home to Italy to see his wife, Elisabetta, and her daughter, Vittoria. So that's been very nice for him. He should be fully refreshed. He's had, obviously, the players to work with in the last week or two. Pretty much had his back three back this week as well, which will have been good for him. And let's just hope now, fingers crossed, in his remaining few matches tonight, that we have no issues. I think Rodrigo Bentancur, Sonny and Davinson Sanchez will probably be the last lot back. I feel like there's one more person. I think maybe it would have been Romero playing tonight. I think Bentancur is 12:30 UK time, so Sanchez. Sonny, I think, is a bit earlier, so hopefully they're all back in good time for Sunday's match. At least it's the Sunday rather than a Saturday game. And yeah, like I say, I'm doing something a little bit different on Sunday, which I'll be able to tell you about afterwards. It's nothing incredible. People have maybe thinking I'm doing something like being on that Spurs TV or something. I'm not. It's just where I'm going to be watching the game from is going to be a bit different. I'm not going to be in the media area. I will explain all at a later point, hopefully as soon after Sunday as I can. But it should be quite fun. I will have my family with me at the game, which is maybe a very slight clue. But there you go. Right, I'm going to head off now. Enjoy the rest of the international break. We're almost there. We're almost through it. No more international games and back to the Premier League and Tottenham Hotspur, which is what we all prefer. So yeah, as always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.